Hi everybody, we're back at the Doldrums, and Adelaide found the trunks. Adelaide flashed her light at them. "Back here," she whispered. Adelaide had discovered there was more to the wall than it appeared. 2 doors with stained glass inserts were covering a hole 5 feet high and 4 feet across. "They might be in here," she whispered. Archer handed Oliver his flashlight and helped Adelaide slide one door over and then the second. The alcove went farther back than they could see, but sure enough, sitting just inside were all 4 scarlet trunks. And not only the trunks, the journals and packages tied with red string were sitting on top. "You found them," whispered Archer. "They're quite beautiful," she replied. Oliver held all 3 flashlights, shining them over their heads as Archer and Adelaide quietly dragged the trunks out of the damp alcove. "Your mother really didn't want you to find those," said Oliver. "I don't think she made the hole," said Adelaide. "Just good use of it," said Archer. They knelt before separate trunks and lifted the latches. Archer's trunk was filled with his grandfather's belongings: an old sweater, a dirty pair of boots, and a tin of milk candies that should have been eaten long ago. Adelaide removed a gold medallion depicting a woman with 3 heads and a stack of photos from her trunk. "They've been everywhere," she said, flipping through the photos. She paused at one of young Ralph Helmsley sitting in a comfortable chair with a crooked smile and grease-stained cheeks. "You look like him," she said, and handed it to Archer. Archer studied the photo. He did look like his grandfather. He slipped it into his pocket. Oliver lifted a wooden case from his trunk. Inside were cork bottles containing colorful powders and liquids. He removed one filled with a dark blue dust and pink specks. "What do you suppose this does?" he asked, showing it to Adelaide. "Taste it and find out," she replied. "Theo ate a basement mixture he didn't understand," said Oliver. "I'm not doing the same." They were all disappointed after opening the 4th and final trunk. They were expecting to find equipment or something that they could use, but aside from personal belongings, all of the trunks had been mostly filled with items that would be as useful as a glass eye. Archer did, however, find a leather satchel full of odd metal tools. "These will be useful," he said. "But we're trying to rescue your grandparents," said Oliver, "not carve the iceberg into a swan." Archer's grin quickly vanished. Footsteps sounded overhead. It was nearing dinner time, and they must be somewhere below the kitchen. "We should go," he said. Oliver and Adelaide piled everything back inside the trunks, while Archer searched the boxes. He found the jade elephant house and dropped it into his pocket along with the photograph of his grandfather. "They would have hated this," said Archer as they pushed the trunks back into the alcove and slid the doors into place. "Those trunks don't belong in a hole in the wall." Oliver and Adelaide agreed, but for now that's where they would stay. They dusted themselves off and stepped quietly back to the foot of the stairs. "Do you have a sleeping bag?" Archer asked. Oliver did, Adelaide didn't. "I'll find an extra one for you," he said. "Why do we need sleeping bags?" "We're camping on the roof," said Oliver. Archer crept up the steps and poked his head out from the cellar door. Mrs. Helmsley was in the kitchen. He motioned, and Oliver and Adelaide hurried up the stairs. Adelaide and Oliver returned to their homes after agreeing to meet Archer on the Glubbs' roof at 8 o'clock. "Slow down," said Mrs. Glubb. "You'll go blind if you keep eating like that." "He's hungry," said Mr. Glubb. "I used to eat like that at his age, too." "Used to," said Mrs. Glubb with a smile. "I'm hungry," laughed Mr. Glubb. "He'll eat like this at my age, too." "We're all sleeping at Oliver's tonight," Adelaide told her father, "just in case you need me." "Sounds like a good time," Mr. Belmont replied. "By the way, did you ever happen across the polar bear?" "I did," said Adelaide. "It's actually quite nice." Archer ate quietly. His father, as usual, was working late in the study, and his mother was fussing over a stain on a linen napkin that wouldn't come out no matter how she tried. "It's Mrs. Merkley's lipstick," she said, "and it still won't come out." When he finished, he set to work, timing his movements with his mother's. First, he lugged the metal bowl from the cellar to the roof, which was more difficult than he thought it would be. He finally got it up the ladder, through, and returned to the roof shortly with 2 sleeping bags and pillows. His final trip was into the sitting room to collect wood from the fireplace. Once his arms were full, he hurried up the stairs and straight into Mr. Helmsley, who had just stepped from his study. "What's all that for?" he asked, with an odd twinkle in his eye. "Hope you're not planning to set the roof on fire." Archer dropped the wood and nearly fell backward down the stairs. Why did you say that? Mr. Helmsley grinned. No reason, he replied. Just be careful. Archer stood quietly watching his father saunter down the stairs. He slowly gathered the logs and climbed to the roof. Oliver and Adelaide were waiting for him. Oliver looked annoyed. Adelaide was laughing. What's going on? Archer asked. Oliver groaned and took a seat on his sleeping bag. My father told her the Rosewood Zoo story, he said. When I was 4 and that monkey pulled my head through the bars. Did that really happen? Said Archer, trying not to laugh. Yes, they had to cut the bars to get me out, said Oliver. That place is horrible. It's a wonder they're still in business with the way they run things. Now you mustn't get too close to the bars, Ollie. Adelaide giggled, imitating Mrs. Glubb. Oliver went pink. Please don't call me that, he said. I hate it when they call me that. Archer smiled and dropped his pile of wood on top of Oliver's. The sun was gone and the stars were out, and they had to use flashlights to see what they were doing. Both Archer and Oliver had made fires in their fireplaces before, but making a fire on the rooftop in the wind proved a bit more challenging. They argued over the specifics, and after a number of failed attempts, Archer managed to get a small fire sparkling in the metal bowl. Adelaide hovered over them with a bucket of water while Oliver tore pieces of the Doldrums press to help it along. Listen to this, he said. The Doldrum press. Girl vanishes down the wishing well. That's awful, said Adelaide. Oliver agreed. He tore the story out and tossed it into the flames. The fire was now doing quite well, but Archer wouldn't stop fiddling and poking at it. You have to let it breathe, said Oliver. Take that stick off the top and put it over there. I think it's burning fine, said Adelaide. Archer finally agreed and left well enough alone. He moved the pile of wood next to his sleeping bag and tossed new logs on the fire whenever it slowed. All things considered, the fire burned nicely in that metal bowl, and they pulled their sleeping bags in tight around it, watching as the flames flickered and the wood popped. And we'll end there, my friends. I will see you all tomorrow.